Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the ASA Insight Podcast.
I'm Lydia.
I'm Dominic.
And we're your co-hosts. We are so excited. This is our third episode. And today we have a special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Beth Elam. I'm serving as our acting dean of students here at Augustana. I have been here for 15 years. Moved into this role almost a year ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I guess let's get started with some of the important topics that happened at this last meeting. So the first thing that happened, and it's a tough one,
Yeah.
is Shannon Nelson came and presented about the cost of attendance here at August. I know the email just went out a couple days ago.
I think it was yesterday.
Was it yesterday?
I think so.
It was like the day after our meeting.
Yeah.
About the cost of attendance going up. So all the students are pertinent to this information.
Yes.
Kind of like the first question we have for you then is, what are your general thoughts on the cost of attendance here and what you got from his little speech that he gave us?
Yeah. And this will go into the next one too. What he presented to ASA, the two slides, I guess, were basically where we rank as far as our aspirant schools. And so we always try to stay in the middle of that range. And then how much we give in scholarship money. So, which we also try to stay in the upper kind of quartile, I guess, of that. So I felt like it was a pretty standard increase. It was helpful to hear kind of the previous 10 to 12 years, I think he outlined at the meeting. So I think that was helpful to see, okay, where has the increases been in the last 10 years? Where does this one fall in line? So I think that was helpful for me to see, because I don't know that I've seen that within that length of time. So then to kind of put into perspective the 4% and the 3%,
yes.
I think is what it ends up being for room and board. That was helpful, at least from my perspective. And then as I've had students coming into my office to ask, why, I think that was helpful for me to be able to explain back to students who maybe weren't at the ASA meeting.
Yes.
I think there's an increase every year. So I think that it's just kind of an understanding. Being here for 15 years, that has been something that has always come, but I think it always comes as a shock to students. So I think what was helpful, I think, is to be able to tell that to ASA and to see those numbers, so then you all can go out to your constituencies and then say, okay, here's the information we were given, and here's kind of why. So I thought that was helpful. And then going into a little bit of their reasonings on, how they came up with that percentage and how inflation kind of works into that and all of that kind of thing. So I thought those two pieces of information were helpful, and I don't know that has been presented to ASA as it was this year, which I think was helpful.
Yes.
I did not remember the little speech. I didn't remember much of that from last year. So
well, I think and to your next question about kind of when we met about it.
Yes.
So in the past, what has happened is we've held town halls in the month of September, and they just aren't well attended. And so I think what Shannon wanted to do, and in talking with Annie and Prince and myself, was how do we get this information to ASA to then further get out to the rest of the student body, so that you guys can help further explain once the message comes out. So I think that was a little bit different of an approach this year, so that you guys kind of saw the meat and potatoes part, and then can share that out to students.
So if I recall, I think Shannon said like the 3 to 4 increase happens every year. Do you think there'll ever be a cap almost of when that increase will stop, or when someone has to be okay, this is maybe getting too high for our students, where can we distribute them? I was just wondering, if it gets super high, what are we gonna do? Or it won't be within the next 2 years, but I was just
Mhm.
wondering if you foresee a cap on that.
Yeah, I don't know to that level of
That's
detail,
okay.
but I think where it was helpful is when we put ourselves up to other
For
institutions, and I
sure.
think that that's where we will always try to stay. So
Perfect.
I don't think that we'll ever see that increase get where we're getting to that upper tier because we really want to stay right where we are and stay in that level of scholarship that we're able to give as well.
Yeah. And if like any of our like friends or students on campus had any questions about
Mhm.
like money or this, could like they talk to on campus about that?
Yeah, I think you can always, I mean, financial aid is always a good resource. So going to that office, I can certainly be again, trying to help explain when, like, yeah, like yesterday when students were coming in on just like why, just to get a good understanding. So I can try to be helpful. I think Shannon is always open for
Sure.
feedback as well.
Yes.
So I know it's a little tougher to get to him, but I think getting that message either through me and we can get to him as well, I think can be helpful. Um, Business office is always a good
Mhm.
resource too if students are feeling that just like, okay, how's this going to work for me next year? What does that look like? So business
Yes.
office is happy to sit down with people and okay, what does this look like? How is this going to impact? And same with financial aid as well. So I think those are always good resources to use.
Yeah. And that's so good to know. I know when that email came out, like some people were like,
Yeah.
what is this? So just resources for people to know is so good.
Yes,
So,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
You have anything else you want to visit on?
I don't think so. That was really good.
Okay,
Thank
yeah.
you guys.
Absolutely.
So we kind of talked about this in our first podcast episode with Annie and Prince
Mhm.
about the code of ethics
Yes.
that was first established now at this last
Yeah.
meeting. Kind of like, what are your thoughts about it, and what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What do you kind of want to see
Mhm.
changed, or what do you want it to do?
Yeah, I think this was something that the previous administration, Lauren and Henry, had really started up to work on when I came into this role back in January. Um, so I know they had researched a lot of different student government senates, whatever they call them at other institutions, um, to see kind of what was kind of the best practice or the norm as it relates to kind of that what does that code of ethics look like as a senator. And so I know they put a lot of time and energy into this is something we haven't necessarily had here. It seems like it's a best practice elsewhere. How do we get that here? So I think it helps because I think whenever you have a standard of behavior.
Yeah.
And when you're in a position like this, there's a lot of ethical components that can play in, and so it's nice to have okay, what is our baseline? What do we strive for? What are our expectations? Because not only for yourselves as a Senate, you're also speaking for your constituents, and so if your constituents know,
Yeah.
okay, my senator, whoever that might be, is held to this standard. I think is important because I think it's similar to why we have a student handbook, right?
Yes.
Code of
Yes.
conduct. Because when you're held to those expectations, you can live up to them. If you don't have any, or you're just like, okay, I do these, or this person does this, and it's not consistent, then it's hard to operate as a body.
Sure.
So I think that yeah, I was really in support of it when Lauren and Henry were researching, and so when Prince and Annie also kind of took that on this year, I thought that was a good thing, and just be able to again less about enforcement, right? It's more about setting
Yeah.
that expectation and that standard so that other students know, okay, yep, the people representing me are held to a standard. So yeah, I don't know that there's anything I don't like about
Yeah.
it. Um, yeah, and there didn't seem to be a whole lot of questions about it. So I think that
No, it got passed like
Yeah,
just
instantly.
like
yeah.
yeah.
So I think that, and I also think it's something that people are used to.
Sure.
And then like these are things that people have been living by
Yeah,
like
yep.
already. And I
Yeah.
think that was like a part of it. It wasn't just something new that
Yeah.
people were like, oh, well, what are these like impeachment clauses or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
hearings or like what is this stuff? Like it's already been like well established that if you don't put yourself out there as like a good student and leading the community like you're supposed to, there are going to be some sort of like consequences. And this just I feel like puts that into practice.
Yeah.
Not practice, but like into stone. It's
Yeah.
actually written out.
Yeah, and it's helpful to pass something like this when you don't have to use it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, so you don't
Sure.
want to ever be reactive where you're like, okay, something happened and now I have to put something into place in order to.
Yes.
It's like, so being proactive about it is better because nothing happened. So we didn't need to implement this. It just, so I think that's also why students didn't have a whole lot of questions because it's not in reaction to anything. So I think that was good.
So next, we have a little club approval.
Yes.
We had Feathered Friends, which I thought was so adorable. Basically, it's just they're making little houses, right, for birds on
Yeah,
campus.
it's like bird houses, bird
Yeah.
feeding, like
Bird watching. Yeah.
it,
Uh,
it's very interesting, like
Yeah.
especially when this first came across finances like desk.
yes.
We were like Noah was like, "Oh, we have a new club here, Feathered Friends." Like, actually, it seems like a really cool club. Like,
Yeah.
when you get into the non-academic clubs,
Oh, yeah.
things either like get really fuzzy with like ASA recognition and stuff.
Mhm.
But this is one that everyone just seemed to enjoy.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't any
What-
backlash or anything.
Yeah, I know. It was great. And I can like totally see them like partnering with like Augie Green to like do their like bird watching. I thought it was a fun little club. Beth, did you have any thoughts on Feathered Friends?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think we've ever had anything similar.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's already happening,
Mhm.
you know, or at least with kind of the class and faculty, and then knowing that there's research that's going on with it,
Yes.
so that's kind of cool. So
Yes.
yeah, I think it was. It's nice to see kind of those fun, different clubs that still have an academic approach, but
Yeah.
it's also just fun. So
I loved it.
And then we did have one funding request that was passed, and that's the
Mhm.
Expo STEM Harrisburg event. For that was also another one when we were looking at it, we're like,
Yeah.
like this meeting was, I'm gonna be honest, really great for just like
It really was.
top-notch quality like requests and
Yes.
clubs.
Yes.
Because the Expo STEM one is these, they're going to the elementary school in Harrisburg,
Yep.
and they're getting these little activities for elementary school kids to just learn more about STEM. And I mean, I'm not a STEM major myself, we're not, but it's just so cool to
Yeah.
see stuff like that.
Yeah.
And out in the community, which is really good.
and third year that they've done it.
Yeah.
you said?
For a few
So yeah, they've done it
years.
for a while.
Yeah, and like I was thinking, like speaking from like an educational standpoint, 'cause, like
You're an
that's my
education-
major. But like I just love that so much. Like just because kids are very like kids for their brains and how they work, kinesthetic is usually the way to go. Like getting them up and moving and hands on, rather than just like lecture based. So I thought when this got presented, I was like, oh, this is gonna be so great. Like I would love this for my future classroom.
Yep.
Like I was super excited about it.
Yes. And yeah, everybody else was too.
Yeah.
That one passed
Yeah.
pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Next, let's talk about student engagement and like our tier one works report. How are you feeling right now about like student engagement on campus?
Yeah, to be honest, I think we are we're very happy with
Yeah.
student engagement. I mean, between particularly the areas within student affairs that
Mhm.
I work with, we've seen increases in student engagement as far as UVG and biking days, welcome week. Rec Services has seen really great numbers with late night events.
Yeah.
They just had haunted house. That was over 500 students. that
Wow.
night.
I would
So
Gosh,
yeah, so that was
Yeah.
just really well attended. Their late nights have been
Yeah.
really big events as well. So we have anecdotally have just felt like this year students have been more engaged from the very beginning. So coming out of COVID, that had slowed down a lot. We saw, especially at the beginning of the year, just getting students back in to programs. But yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of engagement in students, and again, we've seen a lot of new clubs being formed. And I know Student engagement has been involved in a lot of conversations about students wanting to form new clubs and new ideas, and that's and seems like an increase than in previous years. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about it,
Good.
as far as just the beginning of the year up until where we are right now. So yeah.
Do you want to talk a little more about, because you said you like not in this role, but you've been in here 15 years. What was it like pre-COVID compared to post-COVID? Because I mean, we haven't like
We never saw that on
we haven't
campus.
even had a
Yeah.
high school experience
Yeah, honestly.
pre-COVID.
Yes.
Right.
Like, so kind of like what is the biggest differences you see if you just like chat?
Yeah, I think right out of COVID, because we came back with so many guidelines and 6 feet apart and 4 people connect
Yes. Yes.
and all of these guidelines that we just saw a lot more, or we saw, students weren't kind of getting out and about just like they were. Pre-COVID, it was, everybody went to the welcome week, everybody went to the first football game, everybody, name whatever event it was, biking days, and then just so on. It was just like the thing that you did, right? That just you did all the things.
Yes.
And so out of COVID, it was, I would just say, like, more reserved. So I
Sure.
think students were still involved, but it was like very specific to what they,
Yeah.
I'm just going to do this thing, or I'm going to do this thing and this thing. And I think we're seeing that open back up a little bit more
Yes.
on, okay, yep, I'm going to be involved in a lot more things. I'm going to go out and about. So it just took a couple of years, really, to feel like we're kind of back into the swing of things. I think it's still tough because I think it's just kind of ingrained in us now,
Yeah.
right? Like large crowds, things like that. That
Yes.
it's just things that you never really thought about before, So I think that's just something that it's a new concept that we just all live with now. And but yeah, I think that's been the exciting part of just seeing those numbers, and
Absolutely.
students going to more things and the events having higher numbers of students. So that's just been fun to see.
Speaking, like, I'm on UBG
Yeah.
as well. And like our last meeting on Tuesday, Randy told us the numbers and student engagement. All of us were like, oh my gosh, like this is so exciting. Even like our first event during Welcome Week, we did silent disco, which is arguably like one of our most attended but most popular events for UBG. And the attendees almost doubled this year. And all of us were like, oh my gosh, like so great, so good. We're all celebrating. But I really can see that from like my standpoint on being on ASA and UBG and just being around on campus. Like I feel like I can just see, like even from last year, like campus life just being more liveful and just like people are living and it feels really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hoped that like we can keep it up. I really liked that this year Annie and Prince, they're committed to that almost. Like having that like student like engagement and vitalness to campus, which is great. And I love that like they have their own ideas, like hoping to implement just student engagement on campus. But that makes me so happy too, because I just love seeing everyone like come together and just hanging out. So
Well, and I will say our
Yeah.
spaces are much more conducive now than they were when I first started. So
Sure.
we didn't have the green. So that even just having the campus green, and
yes.
when you see people playing flag football or soccer,
Yes.
like that just feels different. Before it was a field of nothing.
Yes.
And actually dangerous to go in. Like,
Really? It's
Height?
just a field?
yeah, it was like, it was kind of, there was this big like pipe that went through there. Like, but then, like the addition of Wagner, obviously kind of more of that the community feel, the addition of I mean, a little bit different, but a little bit more, with the volleyball courts, like they're kind of just so different.
Yes. Love the volleyball.
Yeah, it's a little just different of a layout than it used to be. So I think that what we have with the renovations, additions, and the green, and just that has all helped in the sense of getting people out and about. Sure, because again, that's all happened within also the last years, 3-4 years ish as well. Sure. So I think that contributes to the engagement piece, because if you see people outside playing, you're more apt to go out there and join or
Yes.
watch, or you just feel, okay, I'm going to still go to the library to study, but I'm walking by a bunch of people playing game, and that just feels like what college is supposed to feel like.
At the beginning of the year, those volleyball courts are hot.
They
so
go off.
we have like thing like eat dinner and we're going volleyball right away. No one else can get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But yeah, so another part of Annie and Prince's plan, as Lydia kind of brought up, is to address like student engagement to get it back to like better than pre-COVID levels.
Yes.
What's your department kind of like doing in assistant? And if there's any projects you want to share, what's
Yes,
going on?
you know, we during this summer, student affairs sat down, and what we really talked about is um just how we can work with other areas in collaboration. And so I think we've seen that a lot that helps to contribute. So rather than having like us put on something that maybe something similar to somebody else, so I challenged my team to really like to branch out to say, okay, where else can we go? So you've seen a lot of between student engagement and Office of Faith and Spiritual Life programming collaborations. Angie has been collaborating with everybody on campus for mental health because again, it just feels more natural to meet students where they are. So if she can collaborate with different areas on campus, you know, she's more apt to get people to come to her programs if she's offering it to a wide variety of people. So she's been working with athletics, and she also works with Office of Faith and Spiritual Life and IPO and DNI, and so I think that helps too because like when we're out, we're collaborating with others. That just helps us one to kind of formulate really cool ideas. I'm trying to think of anything. The res halls, I mean, they're programming away and doing some cool things that I think is just helping to amplify programming that's going on in the residence halls. That's been fun. Rec services with Logan being the new director has really been doing some fun things and just getting him kind of acclimated into that role. And that's again, he's just bringing some new ideas and just he's really a positive guy. So it's just they have some fun ideas as it relates to late night events and all of those types of things. Intramurals, and we have an intramural person down in rec services too. So yeah, I think that is contributed. I think we're excited. I think so. We just are excited and hopefully getting students excited to do those types of things too. So yeah, I think that's kind of what we've been working on from.
Well, we see it, so
We do.
Good.
we love it.
Yay!
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, is there anything else that you kind of wanted to talk about or chat on or let people know?
I mean, other than I've enjoyed working with ASA, so this is one area that I haven't in my 15 years here. I haven't really worked a whole lot with ASA, so I've done a lot of smaller projects, mostly with mental health and stuff like that. But it's just been super fun to be able to work with ASA and come to the meetings and get to know you guys and see what the initiatives are. And so I met with a lot of committees just to get what their ideas are, and that's been fun to just see, okay, how can I be helpful? Kind of like I outlined to you at the beginning, how can I be helpful with getting you connected to the right people on campus so that the initiatives are moving in the right direction, and so that's been fun. So I'm looking forward to how that all plays out through the year. So yeah, I think that's all I had.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Beth.
Absolutely.
Righty, and thank you guys for watching in and listening. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks, next episode. Anything else, Lydia?
I don't think so. Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Yay! Thank you, Beth.
Good job.